Okay, greetings. It's 6 o'clock, so we'll get started. My name is Christy Smith, and I'm the chair of the Brownsville-Haywood County Metropolitan Government Charter Commission. We've got a lot of things we want to share with you before we get started hearing from you, but we're very anxious to hear from you. We've been at this since July, and we've been anxiously awaiting the time when we could listen to and hear from our neighbors as to what they want to know and what they have to tell us about this proposed charter. Before we start, I want to say a word of thanks. A lot of thanks is due. Some of it should be to our city and county governments that got this idea rolling following the study commission's work. Special thanks to County Mayor Franklin Smith and Brownsville City Mayor Joe Mathern, who appointed the members to this commission, and we appreciate their support. Thanks to the Justice Complex and all the hospitality they've offered us over these last many months as we've been meeting here. Thanks to those of you in the room who have been our regular attenders. We have some people who've been at every single meeting. I think some have missed none, and they weren't commission members. So thank you for those of you who came. We look forward to having you at future meetings as well. And thanks to each of you for coming, because this is a commitment of time. It's 6 o'clock on a Monday night. You probably had something else to do. So we thank you for your interest in your government, in your own government. To that extent, there are some high school students here who are learning and watching a live civics lesson. So how wonderful to be present for government as it's forming. As a point of courtesy, I'd like to ask you to put your cell phones on stun. If you're a Star Trekkie, you know what I mean. Please, you may need to take a call. Please feel free to do that, but if they would not ring to keep us from being disturbed. Now I want to introduce you to the commission members in case you don't know them. Only a couple are absent. We have first Dr. Dorothy Granberry, who's going to serve tonight as the timekeeper. She wants you to know that she'll be flashing 15 seconds to you at the end of your time, so you have time to wrap up. She'll be timekeeping. John Willis is going to be serving as the parliamentarian, and once you hear the rules and the procedures, you'll understand what his role is. Tim Stokely, Stanton Mayor Alan Stravinsky, Clinton Thomas, Kathy Ward, Jim Bell, Michael Banks, Joe Barden, John Duckworth, Tom Archer, Marjorie Vaux, Jan McAdams, and Patricia Taylor. And we're only missing Charlie Tripp and Rick Bowden. Those two could not be with us tonight. So, without further ado, I'd like to ask Kathy Ward to speak to us about how this came about.
Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Kathy Ward. I've lived in Haywood County for 40 years. I work at Techner Apex, and I love our community. I want to give you a little background on where we are and how we got here to be on this charter commission. Haywood County's current framework for our government was dictated by our Tennessee state constitution, which was written in the 1700s. In 1953, the state of Tennessee made some amendments to the Constitution which allowed municipalities to adopt a unified or metropolitan form of government. Like I said, we've had this, the city of Brownsville, we're under the charter that was written, that the framework was written in the 1700s. It probably makes sense every 200 years or so just to step back and say, are we doing the right thing? Is this current framework we've got, is it the best one we've got? And are there any other things available for us to look at? And that's kind of how we got here. In January of 2012, the city of Brownsville and Haywood County, they started had a study commission that was formed. And after a year of analyzing a metropolitan form of government, they decided that it was a good idea for us to go forward with a metro form of government. Based on their recommendation, our elected city commissioners and county aldermen voted to go forward. They also agreed that this was the right thing for us to look at. After that happened, Mayor Mathern and Mayor Smith selected 15 members of our community to serve on this charter commission. And since July of this year, we have met every week and tried to write the best charter that we knew how to write and to give it to the voters to vote on. You know, our community is made up of a lot of different types of people. We've got young and old, and men and women, and people with cultural diversity and ethnic diversity and religious diversity, but we're all the same in that we want the best thing for our community. And that's why we're all here tonight. I think we're on the right track to unify our governments. This will give our governmental leaders some flexibility in using the resources that we as taxpayers provide to them. Right now, you know, we've got the framework that was dictated in the 1700s, and there's really no flexibility. And today's world requires flexibility from us all, and that's what we're about here. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Jim Bell. I'm from Haywood County. I've been here all my life. I played sports for Haywood County, quite a few sports in Haywood County. I have my family here in Haywood County. What's it taking our Apex? I've been there 15 years. I serve on about 10 boards and committees in Haywood County. I have a passion for Haywood County and making Haywood County a better place to live. My task tonight is to inform you about the effort of consolidation around the United States and the effort in Tennessee. The first consolidation was in New Orleans in 1805. That was the first one. Between 1958 to 1961, there's only been 15 consolidated counties throughout the U.S. In Tennessee, we only have 3, and that is Nashville, Davis County in 1962. There was Lawrenceburg City, Moore County in 1988, and Hartsville, Trisdale County in 2001. Throughout this time, there's only about 1% of consolidated government throughout the United States. The consolidation study has had few attempts throughout the U.S. And the most data-based studies only show that there only has few savings and a better chance in economic development. That was my task for tonight. Thank you.
I'm Joe Barton, and again, we thank you for your willingness to be here tonight at such a busy time of the year. We look forward to hearing your comments, questions, concerns. We want to lay some ground rules first, just to let you know. Before we do that, I want to thank Haywood High School for sending some Beta Club students to hand out things tonight. Thank y'all. And in doing that, I'll confess, if for some reason you did not get a handout, please see those students and they will make sure one gets in your hand. Those handouts are kind of snapshots of the organizational structure of both our county government and our city government and the proposed metropolitan government. And I'll confess the typo now because I'm a contractor, not a writer. So the word law enforcement is misspelled on there. But each of us work at this in our spare time, so to speak. So my fingers obviously work faster than my brain. So let's get to the ground rules. This is a public meeting. It is going to conclude after each of you that want to address the commission does so. If that time approaches the 8 o'clock hour, we will conclude at 8 o'clock, whichever comes first, those that wish to address at 8 o'clock. Each citizen will be given 2 minutes to address the commission. Every citizen wishing to be heard will have the opportunity You may be heard a second time as long as it addresses a different topic, and it must be after everyone else has had the opportunity to address the commission a first time. We want to encourage a mood of courtesy and civility. These procedures are not meant to thwart comments or concerns. Moreover, they are meant for all of us to have an opportunity to exercise our constitutional rights. Thank you, and we appreciate your presence.
Good evening, I'm Michael Banks. I was the attorney hired to help draft the charter for Metro government, and my job this evening is to give a summary of the Brownsville-Haywood County Metropolitan Government Charter. And so I prepared an outline to go over the main topics without getting into the details too terribly much. The Metro Council is composed of 10 members. The districts that each member would be elected from are our current county-wide districts, of which there are 10. Each Metro Council member would be elected for a 4-year term. There are no term limits. They would be elected by plurality vote, which is exactly how it is now both in the city and the county. The candidates for Metro Councilmen must be at least 21 years of age and a resident of the district in which he or she chooses to run. Each Metro Council member must have at least 15 hours of continuing education on governmental issues annually. The chair of the council must be a council member and is elected by the council annually. Any item that comes before the Metro Council must pass by a majority vote, which would require 6 out of 10 yes votes. And the council would have one regular meeting each month, and of course they can call special meetings if need be. And furthermore, the Metro Council could override a veto of the mayor with a 2/3 vote. The Metropolitan Mayor would also be elected for a 4-year term with no term limits. The Metro Mayor would be elected by plurality vote, same as it is now. A candidate for Metro Mayor must be at least 25 years of age and live within Haywood County. The mayor does have the power to veto within 10 days after an item is passed, but the mayor must present a written reason to the Metro Council on why it was vetoed. And of course, the Metro Council could override with a 2/3 vote. And the Metropolitan Mayor would not be able to serve as chair of the council, but the Metropolitan Mayor must attend the meetings. Executive departments, there would essentially be 6 executive departments: the Department of Finance, the Department of Property, the Department of the Metro Clerk, the Public Works Department, Public Safety Department, Human Resources, the Sheriff, Law Enforcement. Department of Finance would essentially constitute the trustee's job as well as the treasurer part of the city of Brownsville. Would be consolidated into the Department of Finance. The Department of Property would consist of the assessors, job duties, as well as the Register of Deeds job duties. Metro Clerk would serve in the capacity that the current county clerk serves, as well as the clerk functions for the city of Brownsville, the city clerk functions for the city of Brownsville. Public Works would make up roads, highways, solid waste, the public works functions that currently fall under Public Works of the city of Brownsville, as well as the highway, county highway superintendent, and solid waste. And also Parks and Recreation would fall under Public Works. Public Safety deals with your fire, animal control, ambulance, all of your public safety functions. Human Resources is a department designed to handle all of the hiring and firing of employees and the paperwork functions and the issues that come up on an everyday basis regarding human resources. The sheriff would be elected, and the sheriff's responsibilities would be running the jail and serving process. The sheriff could also serve as the chief of law enforcement. However, the chief of law enforcement is split out as a separate department in the event that the Metro Council feels like there should be a division between running the jail, serving process, and the law enforcement provision of Metro government. The Metro Council would appoint the chief law enforcement officer, and that person certainly can be the sheriff, but there's a safeguard that's put in place for the chief law enforcement officer provision in the event that we have a situation like our neighbors do next door. We've got a fail-safe in there. All of the executive departments would be appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council, and they can be terminated in the same manner. The Urban Council is made up of 3 members from the Metro Council. Those 3 members must live within the city limits of Brownsville. The only function the Urban Council serves is to set the tax rate on the urban service district residents. As far as education goes, the current school board structure would be retained with 5 elected school board positions. School board members must be at least 21 years of age and live in the district in which they run. They would be elected by plurality vote, same as it is now. The director of schools would be appointed by the school board, same as it is now. And the school board performs the same functions as they currently do. Amendments to the charter can be made by ordinance, but always must be voted on in a referendum for the people. Amendments can be made by petition. Petition comprised of 10% of the people who voted in the last gubernatorial election can file a petition and have the amendment placed on the ballot. And the Metro Council could form a charter revision committee to be formed and make recommendations as to any amendments, which of course must be voted on by referendum. The town of Stanton. The town of Stanton would have the option to join metropolitan government or not join metropolitan government. The county as a whole must also vote to accept the town of Stanton if they decide to opt in. If Stanton does not opt in, if they opt out, then their current city limits are locked and they would not be able to expand. And any provision relative to Stanton would be found in the appendix, which is at the end of the charter. Just a couple of miscellaneous items, and then I'll be quiet. There would only be one taxing authority. You would have 2 different tax rates, one for the urban service district, which consumes more services, and one for the general services district, the rural area outside the city limits of Brownsville, but you just have one taxing authority. All districts, with the exception of District 8, are comprised of city and county residents. All the zoning ordinances, resolutions would continue as adopted now until changed by the Metropolitan Council at some point in time in the future. All employees, city, county, and school can choose to stay with their current benefits or could opt into whatever benefits the Metro government puts into place. The position of the constables would be abolished. Brownsville Utility Department would continue as is unless modified by the Metropolitan Council, and the Highway Commission would be abolished. So those are sort of the nuts and bolts, or a summary of what's in the 30-some-odd pages of the Metro Charter. I was asked to speak also what's unique about this charter. And let me just hit a couple of high points. The elected constitutional officers would be appointed rather than being elected, as we talked about earlier, which is very unusual. You would consolidate a lot of the duties of the current offices, reduce duplications, and it would be more of a municipal or city style of government.
So we do want to hear from you. It's your turn to speak, and please forgive us if we're not making eye contact, because I'm going to be making notes about what you're saying. You please will address, come to the microphone, tell us your name, so we'll know who's making the comment, and then you can ask questions or make comments if you have a particular person you'd like to ask a question of, or if you don't care who answers it, then we can take turns fielding answers. So, thank you. It's your turn.
I don't think I need a mic. I really
I
don't.
think it's for recording.
Okay, all right.
Probably not.
I don't. Old teachers taught you how to project. Good evening, I'm Gloria Jean Sweetlove, and I live at 808 Friendship Road in Brownsville, Tennessee. And it's good to see you're doing some work. I was told I had 2 minutes, and I'll try not to take more than 2 minutes. So I'll state what my questions are, and then I'll take my seat, and you all can allow whoever you like to answer them. One of my first questions is, would council members' term be staggered after the initial elections? How would the vice mayor be elected? Why would we use separate law enforcement? I heard that. And my last question says, if only 1/3, about maybe just a little bit more than 1/3 of the Charter Commission is minority, why would we believe that people of color would have an equal opportunity to be appointed to those positions that you say now that the council will appoint rather than them being elected? I'll take my question, my answer sitting down.
First one is staggered terms. Right? First question was.
Yes, I'll answer.
Okay.
Staggered terms. Yes, in terms of the council, the terms will be staggered. We're proposing that the election, I believe, will be in 2018. Okay, and those council members now may have the even and the odd room, but say from even district, number district, will serve for 2 years. Those from odd number district will serve for 4 years. Then after that, all members would be 4 years. So that's how the staggered terms is.
All right. Separate law enforcement.
Yeah.
Or is it separate law enforcement?
Well, it is, what you call it or not.
Okay, the sheriff's constitutional duties are not law enforcement. And those duties would be assigned to the sheriff, as always, by their election. The Constitution does not provide for the sheriff to do law enforcement. So the law enforcement aspects would be either assigned to the sheriff or to someone who would be hired. That would be the council's choice. So the presumption is the sheriff would be the law enforcement officer unless the council chose to elect someone else. Did I say that?
That's right. You said it better than I did. And as far as vice mayor goes, there's not a vice mayor written into the charter. You have the chair of the Metropolitan Council that could serve in the absence of the mayor, or the mayor could assign certain duties to the chair of the council. But there is no vice mayor.
And would you ask the last question again, Ms. Sweetlove?
I said, well, just barely more than 1/3, you can't cut a person in half of your charter commission is minority of people of color. So why would we believe that a person of color would have an equal opportunity at those positions that now the 10 council people will assign them to, rather than them being able to run? Like now, if I want to be trustee of these, I run for the whole county. Why would we think that?
First thing is we were selected by the county mayor and the city mayor. So their makeup and their decisions on how they chose this commission were of their experience and what they thought. But honestly, what I think, because we're implementing a human resources department, which neither county government or city government now has in place. And quite honestly, I think there's a greater potential of citizens of ethnic minority to have chances at those jobs with the human resources department in place It's not set up so that a council goes and hands pick. I mean, just like a human resource is set in place in a corporate environment, those candidates have to be vetted, cleared, looked at what their qualifications are, so that the person with the best merit and qualifications gets the job. That's the best answer I think there's a greater potential there. I don't know so much as the commission met and the various different people talked. I do believe that the heart of this commission was to make sure that everybody involved in this potential new form of government had opportunity, even those that are minority members.
I'd like to add, on the current, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our current districts are 10. 6 are majority black and 4 majority white. Now that doesn't guarantee that's the makeup of the council. Anything can happen. So, but that being said, there should be a mix on the Metro Council. And any hiring and or firing has to go through that council. So I think all it should be and would be taken into account.
Anybody else? Thank you. Another question?
My name is Jerry Hollingsworth, and I live on Marvin Chapel Road. And my question is, Article 7 of the Constitution, Tennessee Constitution, says those officials that we're talking about are required to be elected by the people. By what authority is the Constitution bypassed?
If you look at the third paragraph of that, it then addresses alternative forms of government in which it says that their duties have to be performed. But and it doesn't address whether or not they have to be elected or not. I'm relying on a case out of Knox County regarding that opinion.
I can read you the first paragraph.
That's fine, but read the third paragraph as well.
Okay, I'll do that later. Why would you want to take away the people's right to elect our county officials? That's our right to cast a vote to elect the people that we want in those offices.
I think some of the approaches that we've heard to your question revolves around representation. Why you're taking away my representation on these 5 individuals, and these are the constitutional officers, right? That you're addressing. And so, you know, some of the thinking that went on in the group was, you know, these constitutional officers, if you want to close a road or you want to change something that's happening in your government, you don't go to your alderman today, and you don't go to your councilman, or you do go to your alderman, you do go to your council, excuse me. You don't go to the assessor's office. They, in a sense, do not represent you in the same way, in the same manner that a mayor or a councilman or an alderman does today. So there's a difference in maybe the approach towards what these folks really do. They actually perform a function. And I might add real quickly here that right now we're blessed in Brownsville-Haywood County with some very, very good people. In a county not too far away from here, where we can all read the papers, we have some difficulties going on there. So we have good people. There's nothing against the folks that are there. It's all a matter of looking at the function and then holding those people accountable. If you have an issue with one of those individuals, you pretty much are locked in for the next 4 years. If someone goes sour on you in one of these offices, you're locked in. If someone doesn't perform up to task in the proposal in the metro government, the accountability is almost daily, or it is daily. So there's just a difference of approach there. I don't know if that.
Well, okay, I heard what you said. I disagree with it. Anytime you take away my choice, which is happening, I think that's a bad thing for the people. Thank you.
I'm sure you're not through because we can go home. Yes, please.
Sir, I was just going to address you to Article 2. You actually will have representation from the council because those individuals are going to be elected. So it's not that the people will not have voice or that you will not have a representative. It will be the same as the representative that you have now, except for the numbers will be reduced. Now we're governed by a commission. It will be the same thing with the Metro Council. You would still have representation. You would still have a voice in terms of the electorate.
It's my understanding those constitutional, oh, I'm sorry, ma'am, that those constitutional positions, right now they're administrative positions. They run according to the statutes of the state of Tennessee. So those people that are in those constitutional elected positions, they really don't have any flexibility outside of what's mandated by the state of Tennessee. Did I state that correctly, Michael?
But it's in the Constitution.
The exception is also in the Constitution as well.
Again,
The exception to that is also in the Constitution.
I guess you can read that into it. I just read it. I didn't see it. But.
Yes, well, is this, you know, really, we're supposed to let everybody speak once before we come back. But so far, Gloria, you may just be it. Yes, sir. Thank you. So far, Gloria, you may just be it.
Let that lady,
Yes,
that
sir.
lady wants to speak.
Thank you.
Okay, on this chart, there are 10, 1 and 1, 12 elected officials. Everybody else,
Your name?
I'm sorry, Ginger Hathcock. I live on Key Corner Road, which means I'm in the county. Okay, there are 12 people on this chart that are elected. Everybody else is appointed / hired through the human resources. Okay, the human resources person is recommended by the mayor and approved by the council or disapproved by the council. Okay, so after the election, or after these people take office, then the underlings will be named, and then human resources will kick in and staff all these other positions. So, but my bottom line is, where's the human resources office coming from? It's coming from the mayor and the council. These 11 of the 12 elected people are going to be naming the person that hires everybody else, or that interviews and recommends people for all these other positions.
For the staffed positions, but not the departmental positions. Those would be, the directors would be nominated to the council by the mayor.
But they don't have to go through human resources?
They have to be accountable through all the regulations of human resources, but they probably would be appointed by the mayor. The people that they hire would all, human resources may or may not be involved, but the accountability is to the mayor and the council for those hires.
No, in other words, the mayor could be given a name. The mayor, this is in theory now because this is all hypothetical in the past, but the mayor would then take that to human resources. Proper things work out, and that name is presented to the council. ratified, then that person could potentially have that department headship. But also that name could be given to someone in human resources, or you could go through the application process, or any number of those things. But I think, am I correct in stating that? That once the human resources department hits the ground, yes, that's their charge, along with managing the benefits of all of the employees of the metropolitan government.
And there's qualifications written into the job description, so there's qualifications that have to be met to head up a department.
Each department director has to have certain qualifications. So
And these are written in that
they're
36
written
pages.
so as America appoint someone to do those functions, but they have to meet the requirements. They have to have, if it's a bachelor's degree or preferred experience, they have to have those qualifications. So you just can't go pick anybody to fill those positions. It has to be somebody qualified.
Right, but the human resources has to more or less approve, say that this person meets the qualifications before the mayor can nominate it to the council.
That's the channel.
Yes. I think everybody should be aware that human resources is just a unit for doing the paperwork in terms of checking out whether or not people meet whatever set of criteria are established. And this, the department head, and let's say you've been selected to be head of the library. Human resources would not hire your people. They would just check out the qualifications of the people. You actually are the hiring authority for people who are going to work in the library.
I think as the procedure goes, you'll find, I would think, that you'll find that positions will be advertised. Human resources will form a valid pool of applicants for the position. That position may consist of 6 or 8 qualified people. Those 6 or 8 qualified people will be presented to the mayor. His nomination then would go before the council, and the council would approve. That would be my concept of how this would work. I don't know if that helps you. I don't know if that helps you.
But bottom line, human resources has to either approve or disapprove of the nominees.
My thing is they have to validate that pool.
Hopefully based on the spelled out qualifications.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Actually based on nothing else.
Yeah, they're just validating that they're qualified for those positions, not that these are the only people you have to hire this person. They're just.
Ultimately, the council, I think it's written in the council has to vote by majority to approve that candidate.
And that's for directors, is that department heads?
That's for department heads, and it also has to approve by majority the dismissal of a potential employee.
So part of the role of the Human Resources Department really is to standardize benefits and to keep things legal for employees, because currently our governments have disparate benefits and pay for the same job. Human Resources would standardize that across all officials who work. Everyone who works for the government would have the same benefits, the same pay structure for the same job, which does not currently happen. That was part of the thinking behind Human Resources.
Let me add to this in terms of human resources. You know, there are all of these things that government and people that are hired have to meet, meaning, for example, like the Family Leave Act, those kinds of things. The Human Resource Department is the place in the government responsible for knowing all of the rules regarding legislation about, so Haywood County, hopefully, you know, would not be going to court and being sued by someone because their rights under the Family Leave Act, you know, are violated and so on like that. So rather than that being spread across all the departments, there's this one department who has the responsibility for being the government's voice relative to those things.
Jim?
If you just take for a moment, if you think about the city of Haywood County, of Brownsville, is already ran metro. Most every position in the city is appointed. And that metro that we're proposing is falling up under really the same structure. The county, you only eliminate 4 positions. There's only administrative position. The main positions that are going to control the day-to-day operation, those people will still be in place. You still will be able to vote for your mayor. You still will be able to vote for your council, the ones who are going to represent you in your community. Right now in the city, you have no control on the appointments. The city mayor has control of the appointments. In the county, Mayor Smith does not have any authority over anybody in the county. Everybody has an elected position. He has the one that fall up under him, but most of each position is elected. So we are almost metro at this point in the city. So if you just take that for a moment and think about it in consideration, and in the city you're running more, people are held more accountable for their actions in the city. Everybody's up under the same plane. In the county, each office is pretty much ran on however they want it to be ran. And there's pretty much nothing you can do about that. If they want to set the hours or however they want to set them, there's nothing really we can do about that. Just holding some accountability for their actions and to make it more efficient. And just to touch back on Ms. Gloria about minorities having being able to be represented. That was one of the topics that I talked about and pushed on. But if you look at it, at this point, it would eliminate the popularity. Just because you're popular in the community, and if you come from this family, you're going to have the most votes. They'll eliminate that. You pretty much get the most qualified person for those positions. So that's just an overview on that about Haywood County.
I'd like to expand a little bit. Jim mentioned the city government. You vote for the mayor, and you vote for an alderman. I guess that's it. The county is different, no doubt, the way we've had it. I mean, it's just been that way forever, I guess. But you go to the state level, you vote for a governor, you vote for a representative, you vote for a senator. You don't vote for anything else. You go to the national level, you vote for the president, 2 senators, and a representative. You don't vote for the Secretary of Defense. You don't vote for the Secretary of State. So 3 out of 4 governments, if you live in the city, that's the way it's done. So, that's all I have to add.
Yeah. Other questions? Come on.
Yes, my name is James Perkins, and I live at Friendship Road in Brownsville in the county. My concern is when these jobs come open, how are we going to, I know that you're saying that the mayor will appoint these people and they will be through the Metro Council will have to confirm them, but how many for a position, how many people will be, will we just take one position from the mayor, or will we have a list of people for that job before it goes before the council, yes, for election of those people.
Do you have another question?
No, that's
Okay,
it.
thank you. Mr. Purple. That's a great question. Who wants to take it?
I can give you what would be in my mind's eye, but that's a good question. Because as a former member of the school board, I remember that board being able to select a pool of candidates. And I'm trying to imagine very quickly, as you brought the question, how that scenario would play out if you had a Metro Council and a pool of candidates. I lean toward that Human Resource Department narrowing that field to one recommended candidate. It would be, but there again, and one thing I'd like to stress, if this were to pass, it is completely contingent upon who your elected officials are. who your council members are, who your mayor is going to be. So this, because it doesn't specifically address that, because that would really be a technical issue of how business is done daily. In the charter, it would almost boil down to what the council and mayor decided was the appropriate policy that they were going to adopt. Were they going to use candidates as a pool to select, or were they going to use narrow it down to one person? It would almost fall into the hands of those elected officials at that time. I know that probably doesn't give you a really great answer, but so much of this, as the commission met, we kept coming back to, it depends on the government that we elect. Is the government going to be fiscally conservative? If it's not, then you're not really saving anything on canceling out redundancies. As it stands, in essence, to coin a term, government is getting smaller in the way that we're proposing it. But it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to stay that way, because we were just elected to write what we thought was the best form. We can't govern it after this commission is done. That's the end of what we have to say about it.
Let me add that the human resources would, again, just check credentials. But you've elected a mayor, and you've elected that mayor, and we're proposing here in this charter that there are these departments, so that that mayor has some control over these departments. For example, when I first came here 3 years ago, I went to a meeting, and there was something about the budget, and one of the commissioners was presented. And I said, well, what's the problem with getting your budget out on time? And he pointed out that in terms of the constitutional offices, that the county government and the county mayor had no clout to determine whether they could ask them, but if they got the budget in on time, they did. If they did not, it didn't matter, because they had nothing. They were elected officials. Only the electorate could force them. If I don't use that word force. Now, what's being proposed here in the charter is a government where the mayor has some control over departments and can determine what takes place. So, when you're dissatisfied with something in one of those departments, you actually can talk to the mayor. You actually can talk to the council people, and they can have some input. You don't have to wait till the next 4 years to elect the person. Now, the question about how would it be narrowed down, let's say if we have 5 people. Again, that's what you elect the mayor for, and the mayor has to work with those people. Human Resources looks at all 5 of the people and so on, but the mayor makes a decision about who she is going to put forward, just as the president does. Do you follow? When the president is looking for the Secretary of State, and there are all types of constituencies, proposing this person, proposing that person, the same thing can work here in Haywood County, meaning that, you can propose, that you got a candidate you think would be good to be director or whatever, and that's part of that process. But it's the mayor, really, who is going to decide who among all those people that mayor is going to present to the council and ask the council to endorse it. Not the human resources person. The human resources person does not have, they're not in that position. It's that mayor who is representing you and who you expect to pick the best person who can serve in that position. This is representative government, okay? Meaning that you can hold that person accountable. You can hold your council people accountable. You can say, Dr. Granberry, why in the world did you approve that squirrel? Do you follow? And expect that I would do something about it, okay? All right.
Oh, Gloria, you're just defying all the... Yeah. Okay, come on up. Please make next, sweet love. Is that what you want to do?
My name is Johnny Haynes. I've lived in Haywood County for 60 years now. I was in the Navy for 4 years, 1972 June to 1975 June. And what I've heard here tonight, you're planting the seed for corruption. You're putting a lot of power on one man, a mayor, like the doctor said. It's a rich man's form of government. It's what y'all are trying to create here. And when y'all go to the voting booth, some of y'all are going to vote no to this because it's corruption in the fullest. It's the rich man's form of government. You got the mayor, it's going to be in a rich man's back pocket, is all you're doing here. I worked with state government for 30 years. I've seen corruption. I've seen people buy state jobs. I trained the boy. I said, how'd you look up and get this state job? I worked for 15 years before I was training that boy. I said, how'd you look up and get this state job? My daddy gave the commissioner $10,000. I said, he did. Cash money. Now you can't trace cash money. There's no paper trail on cash money. I seen a commissioner, a state elected commissioner in Memphis, Tennessee, on Highway 51 and 240. They call it the 101 connector in Memphis, Tennessee. Sitting in a state vehicle, elected official, statewide, elected in all 95 counties. A man from a company that commissioner regulated walked over to that state car and gave that man an envelope that thick. It was a white business size envelope that thick. He opened it up and that commissioner did his finger just like that over them $100 bills. He put it on the seat. The man never said thank you. That state official never said thank you. That company official got back in his car and he drove off. 15 minutes later, the driver for that commissioner got into the state car and went down I-40 all the way back to Nashville. That was a payoff. That's corruption. Look on your computer.
Let me stop you here.
Okay.
I don't want you to mislead anybody to think that the form of government that we now have in Haywood County is corruption-free.
Not right now.
I mean, I think the point is all forms of government are open to corruption.
Right.
We are naive if we don't understand that. The form that we have now, I am sure there's somebody here who could testify about some corruption in Haywood County. That's the nature of government. I don't know any way that you remove that people don't, buy off people. So for example, you have to have X number of dollars now to run for governor in the state of Tennessee. And we're electing the governor the same way we have elected the governor since the 1700s. But you have to have a huge amount of money behind you. The point is, corruption is there. It's a fact of life in terms of public life. And when we have elected officials, we're talking about the constitutional officers. There are no safeguards that if I run for Mr. Sonny, what are you, trustee? County trustee. Do you follow that? I won't take a bribe from somebody to do certain kinds of things in the county trustee's office. There's no guarantee against that. There are no safeguards other than the fact that when I'm caught, you send me to jail. But that happens regardless of the form of government, whether we continue to have Brownsville city government and Haywood County government, or whether we try to come up with one government for this small county with declining population that can operate more efficiently. It all is subject to corruption. I mean, I don't know. I don't know any form. Afterward, if you know a form, please let me know. And I will certainly proselytize all over the land about that form of government, that it will guarantee that we won't have any corruption.
Thank you, Doctor. I appreciate not getting my 2 minutes, but that's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay, all right.
Go ahead and finish your comment.
That is my comment. That is my comment, corruption. I want y'all to go to the computers tonight, Operation Tennessee Walls, Steam, and read it and look at it. The taxpayers, I mean, the voters of Haywood County are not gonna go for this. Y'all just wasted y'all's 20 meetings.
That's why there's going to be an election.
Good, I hope it
There's
is.
going to be an election, and I think I know how you're going to vote, and that's fine.
Some of y'all gonna vote that way too.
May or may not.
I know you will.
When it's over, I'm going to be able to go home and sleep fine.
I'm gonna go home right now.
And it's got to pass the city, and it's got to pass the county.
It'll never make it, John.
I don't think it will be.
Well, thank you.
It might
Thank
not.
you.
It might not.
It'll never make it.
I want you to understand something. We were appointed by the county and the city to do the best we could. Now, we're not part of that corruption you're talking about. We didn't get a dime out of this. We're not getting paid a meal. We're not getting anything. So you don't have to stare me down when you talk about corruption. You made your point. And the voters will vote it up or down.
That is my point.
Well, I mean, that's why we're going to have a vote.
Well, at least I stirred a nerve with y'all, didn't I?
Thank you, Mr. Haynes, so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
I
Smith.
do agree that I don't know how you can put corruption out of any form of government.
I don't see it in our government right now. The city's working good, the county's working good, they both work good together.
Okay, so after the meeting, we'll have a little conversation about our history, and we'll talk some more. But thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Smith.
Next
Thank you.
thoughts?
Christy, I'd just like to make a comment. One of I love this county. I have lived here. I'm a product of Haywood County. And I think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of ambition to put forth this document. I think that everybody here has worked together civilly, and we're all working from the best interests of this county. One of the things that I love about this document is that it opens up for competition. I know that maybe you think about, now if you love everything about the city of Brownsville, you love everything about Haywood County, then you are definitely in the minority, because all of us know that there's room for improvement. I love this county, but there are a number of weaknesses. I don't know about all the open corruption because I'm not there with some of the activities that are going on, but we do know that just from the electorate, that sometimes corruption is inherent. If that was the case, why do so many politicians go and they never want to leave Washington? The structure was set up that you would leave, you would be employed, you would go to Washington, represent the people that sent you, and then you would go back home. But we have people that have been in Congress for 30 years and they have no intention of leaving. Why? Because there's something there that holds them to that position. I love the fact that if I want to apply for a job and Jan wants to apply for the job, that it doesn't matter where Jan lives, whether she's wealthy, whether she's not, whether she's Caucasian, African American, that we can both be considered competitively for the position. That's all that we want, right? We want to be considered fairly and equally. I love that this document allows you to do that. Many of my friends no longer live in Haywood County. They no longer live in the city of Brownsville. If you think about your children, your grandchildren, you want them to come and reside in this county, what kind of life will they have? What kind of opportunities do you want them to have? My nephew goes to a school in Jackson, and when I'm there, I see a number of Haywood County people at that school. He goes to USJ. When I go to a game at Jackson Christian, when I go to Trinity, there are all kinds of individuals that are being bused to those schools. Would you not like for those individuals to remain here, that they would expand our tax base so that we can have a better services? So I think that it takes you to be open-minded to really look at this document and don't go, I personally am looking forward to it passing. I'm going to be open-minded. I know there's a lot of negativity associated with it. I would not have made a personal sacrifice every week for 2 hours on a Monday to come and work on a document, to hate to see that people would not be open to the idea of it passing. And so my plea to you would be to be open-minded about it. Consider it. If you think everything is great with this county, then vote against it. But if there's room for improvement and that you think there's some opportunity for that, I think that you should really be open-minded and consider it. I don't think anyone here is trying to write a document or craft a document to harm you, to mislead you. If that was the case, we would not be transparent and open it so that you can ask questions. So I would hope that moving forward that we would be open-minded. And if it doesn't pass, it doesn't pass. It's just like anything else. Then don't complain about it. If it doesn't pass and everything is wonderful, and it turns out 5 years from now, our population hasn't grown, in terms of minority representation, I think we only have 20 commissioners. 9 of those are African American. In terms of the courthouse representatives, do they reflect the demographics of the city? Does the school board reflect the demographics of the city? We need to ask ourselves some questions and to really be honest and open about it. I think sometimes we don't want to have open conversations because it requires a lot of courage. And so I'd hope that you would move forward, that you would be courageous to consider the document.
Thanks. We do want to hear from you. You're hearing a lot from us, and the intention really is to hear from you. So more comments, please, or questions?
Robert Boyd, and I've been living in Haywood County all my life. I haven't heard anybody explain to us tonight how metropolitan government can benefit our county and our town. Would somebody on the commission would like to address this question? How can a metropolitan government benefit our county and our city? Who'll be first?
I'll take a stab at it. We won't.
God give us 2 years.
That's right. That's right. In terms of one of the ways, I think what the potential for benefit, meaning that there's one government for businesses that want to come into this area and bring jobs. There's one set of people who make the decision. The business won't have to deal with the county mayor, the city mayor, and then all other kind of people in between. Meaning that one set of people can decide yay, nay, and so on like that. That's one way. In terms of the overlap, sometimes decisions have to be made, in terms of, again, not with businesses, but in fact, growing the population, that we have one set of people that we have charged with doing this, that operate and are responsible to each other. They do not operate as independent units. I think those are some of the things that can benefit Haywood County from metro government.
All right. If metropolitan government is so good, why doesn't Memphis have it? Why doesn't Jackson have it? Why doesn't Paris have it? Why doesn't Dyersburg have it?
Maybe they don't understand the benefits of it. Let's ask the question.
I still don't understand the benefits of
it. In terms of, let's just talk about how you pay your taxes now. You pay 2 sets of taxes, right? County taxes and city taxes. Well, one of the things is you just pay one tax, okay? It'll be one tax, okay? If your county tax and your city tax equals $2,200, you just write one check for $2,200. You don't have to write 2 checks. That's a simple one.
How does that benefit the key city in the county?
That was it.
I'll talk to you, Robert. Since we're blood, we keep bringing blood anyway. Somebody asked me today, well, are you for it or are you against it? And, as commissioners, it's hard when you put 18 weeks into something and not have some personal attachment to it. I mean, you can't work on something every week like we've done for 2 hours at a time and not say, that's a great idea, Patricia. So we've all exchanged ideas, and I'm not speaking for the commission, I'm speaking for myself. And it kind of goes back to that contingent on who we elect. If we elect the right people, I see money savings. That's what I see.
I don't have any quarrel with the council. I don't have any quarrel with the government. I'm asking for the benefit.
Well, what's the benefit? I think there could be some money savings because you've got some duplications of some services and equipment. Our school board, one of the reasons when you heard Michael say our school board pretty much remained the same, because it's already consolidated. We have so many layers, and I think one of the reasons, to go back and answer your question, why so many other towns don't do it, I think it's because we get along so good. Our county and city have worked together, one funding Parks and Rec, one funding Fire Department, so well that we've done a good job at it.
Are we smarter than Nashville? Are we smarter than, this lady brought out that they didn't know about it. They didn't know about it.
I think it's just because we've been small and we've gotten along so good for so long. But
Mr. Roberts,
yes.
Here I am. No, you're right. I think in the state of Tennessee, there have been 20 votes and 3 have passed.
We got 3 cities in the state of Tennessee with metropolitan government.
Right. Out of 20 votes.
This is what bothers me. If it's so good.
Well, I asked the same question early on, and I liken it to, I think a big part of it is just change. I mean, I guess your church is no different than mine. You propose something different in your church, and I know in my church things just go crazy. So change, I think, is really the single biggest factor. Not necessarily that it won't work, but that's just my.
I think the council need to explain to us as the county, as citizens, as voters, the benefit of it. How can it help us? If it can't, then we're wasting our time. You're wasting your time.
Okay, so Joe said economic benefits, and Dr. Brandberry said those people who are looking at us, companies, Rick Bowden, who is not here, said when he goes on behalf of the company to other cities to look at places to consider to put a new plant, their job is to rule you out, not to find a way to rule you in.
You think the metropolitan government would benefit?
He does, and others have told us the same, that it would be of benefit to those who are looking at us when the, what do they call it? Mega site. When the mega site comes, that we would be more attractive for the efficiencies and the cost savings.
Why wouldn't these bigger counties got more money and more tax be jumping at something like this?
Because most of them have several different municipalities within side of the county limits. And they're all in competition for tax dollars and everything like that. Brownsville-Haywood County is very unique in that most of the services are jointly funded by the city and the county. Schools, that's right, already jointly funded. Schools, fire, parks and rec, animal control, central dispatch, 911, library, county and city attorney. I mean, we're an anomaly in the state of Tennessee and probably across the country. And so most other counties, most other cities are the polar opposite of what Brownsville and Haywood County are, where they're always bickering and fighting with each other.
We're smarter than those counties, aren't we? Yes.
Well, hey, we managed to get
We're
along.
getting ready to prove it.
Mike, use yourself as an example. Tell them one benefit. That one person to serve, you wouldn't have, we wearing two hats. The attorney for the city and the attorney, oh, you got another? And the attorney for the county, you'd be the attorney for Metro government. Yeah.
You know,
True.
Brownsville and Haywood
Maybe.
County, we're not that big, it's 20,000 people.
18.
18,000.
Let me say something just a little bit about change. I mean, I know I'm human and we all are in here, and I don't like change myself. I mean, I don't know a lot of people that do, but if we don't change with time, I mean, in my job, we change something every day. And if I don't change with that and change, I'll die. I don't know if this will pass. I don't know if it'll fail. We're going to move forward either way, but I know growing up in Haywood County, I went all the way through our school system. And I started in the county. I lived on the other side of the tracks. And I grew up like that. And I was labeled the other side of the tracks. Well, thank goodness my mother was a school teacher. She moved to Anderson when I was in the 5th grade. Guess what? I moved on the inside of the tracks. Why did we consolidate our school system? I'm glad we did, because now we know our kids are not labeled the other side of the tracks or the inside of the tracks. I'm so glad of that. Just myself growing up in it, and I changed within that in the 5th grade. I remember today, you know, and it looks to me today, I love our school system being consolidated. I'm glad it's not two, city and the county. I am so glad it's not like that, because we're one. If you go to school, you're in the school with each other. It's not two kids against each other because you lived on two different sides. I don't know why we consolidated the school system, but I sure am glad we did. I don't know if that would compare to our city and county government, but that's my 2 cents on school system. Why is it consolidated?
Thanks. Hi.
My name is Rodney Wright. Lived in Brownsville all my life. 1803 Hickory Grove Road. And I want to thank y'all for putting this effort forward. I know that it had to be difficult, and I appreciate it. I'm not against change if it's for the better. And I guess that's what I've been struggling with this whole time, is whether it's better, and it was kind of dependent on how this charter came out. Now it's kind of dependent on who the mayor is. Seems like we can have a conservative government, or we can have a very expensive government based on who the mayor is. And you know, one concern that I have is what if the city grows? And so it's a popular vote, so the city's going to decide. What if the county grows? Then the county's going to decide. You know, right now we're city and county, and we got two different sets of representation. And if you consolidate it all into one and the majority rules, if the city grows, which would be good, then my vote's not really going to count if it grows, you know, way more than what the county is. So that's one concern I have as far as representation, because you say we're going to have representation, but that's a majority vote, so that depends on where you live. And the other thing that worries me is the power that the mayor will have. You were saying that you could get a bad apple, and you know, we could get a bad apple too. And I know that you have in there, if he does something illegal or immoral or something like that, then you can get him out of there. But I think to give the mayor this much power and not have some way to put him in check, it concerns me. What if you got a good guy and he's popular and he gets elected and he wants to sit in his pajamas all day long and not get anything done? You're stuck with him for 4 years. So that's my main concerns about it. And again, you know, change for the right reason is good, but change just for the sake of change, that just leads us down a path that we don't understand, and we don't know what's coming down the road of uncertainty. I restored a 1944 John Deere tractor, and it's a hand crank. But when the rest of them won't start and the battery's dead, you go out there and turn that sucker over, and it's going to start popping. And it doesn't have power steering. It's not real easy to drive, but it's going to start. So just keep that in mind.
I'm Alan King. I live in Haywood County. I'm chairman of the Budget Committee. I've been on the Budget Committee for 50 years. I'm going to say one thing in defense of the departments in Haywood County. We look at every department's budget every year. We go through it. I can't find any corruption. We see all of what's spent that year, what's spent the previous year. And right now we've got a man in the office up in Franklin's office. It gives us the best resume that we ever have as to where the county is. And I just want to say that, now, it used to be, you might say, well, we're late getting the budget out. Well, one thing we try to do is we try to find out how much fund balance is left in each one of those departments, because it's incumbent upon us, for the taxpayers, to keep the tax rate as low as possible. And the only way we can keep the tax rate low as possible is to try to keep our expenses down. And in the process, I'm going to defend the county, and I frankly verify the very same thing. I think right now we have got those elected officials that we got in office, I trust all of them, we have to set their budgets every year. We have to go over, we set the salaries of the employees, and we have a base set for that. Now, you mentioned about the schools. A lot of y'all wasn't around here, but I've been around a long time. We were under court order, and they split the county. And they talked about splitting the county out 54 and out 70. Well, children on one side of the road go to one school, the other side of the road go to the other school. And in the process, it was going to be a lot of bedlams. You're going to have to run 2 buses. So we got an option on the land where the John Deere place is right now. We were going to build a school there. It was determined that when somebody, I don't remember who proposed that we use the railroad track, because it just so happened the railroad track just about divided Haywood County 50-50. I don't know who proposed that, but somebody proposed it, and the county commission went along with that because it kept the bus routes from having to duplicate, cut down on expenses. At that time, we didn't transport every child in the county. But after we had to split that, we had to go out and buy the old Cox property, where there was a big old stone house out there close to the interstate, because the federal government sent 2 people down here, and those 2 people had the authority to tell us where to build that school. They said they would not accept any position, any place, close further than a half a mile from I-40. Said this little town would dry up and be out there around I-40 in 10 years. So we had to buy that property, the old Cox property where that house was, and build Sunny Hill School out there. And that's how it happened to be like it. But Haywood County was divided by, we wanted a court order. We didn't have any say-so about it. Now, about the budget, I don't know. I looked at this. Y'all are doing away with the 6 constitutional officers that we set the base salary on. All those officers in Haywood County draw the same minimum salary. Is that right, Michael? 4 of them. Okay. All right, 4 of them. All right, then the sheriff draws 10% more than they do, and then the county mayor 5% more than that. Isn't that right? And all that's set by the state. That's correct?
For county governments, but not necessarily for metropolitan.
I understand that. I'm talking about the present county government. Okay, what is set on metropolitan government? What is the state regulation on metropolitan government? Somebody down the line, it won't be me, because I'm 80 years old. I've been around too long. As I was told in one of the meetings up there, I made a statement, and one of the young men jumped up and said, "Oh man, you've been here too long. It's time for you to go." And because that's fine. I won't be around here by 18. I guess that's what you're talking about. But somewhere along the line, somebody's going to have to set some salaries, and those salaries are going to have to be determined back to the people of the taxpayers of Haywood County. Now, we people in the county, we've been nailed. Is the only way I can say it. My taxes are up. My taxes are up 33% what I pay. But I just want y'all to look at the idea of somebody got to make a decision on what salary is going to be set, because that money going to have to be spent.
Mr. Allen, just to clarify a point, the sheriff's salary, I believe, is the only one that's actually set. It's set in accordance with the TCA section that you were talking about.
But we're told every year what each one of those salaries is.
You're told the minimum. That's right.
The minimum. That's right. We have to maintain the minimum.
That's
Now,
right.
we can go up above the minimum, no problem.
Absolutely. But you're accountable to the taxpayers in the end.
That's right. That's
You go up,
exactly right.
and this government would be too.
I think, make that point, that this government would be accountable to the taxpayers in the same way that the council people, just as Mr. King as county commissioner, is accountable and is jealously guarding how much we pay people in terms of what the county can afford. Well, the people elected in terms of metro government would do the very same in terms of setting salaries. As you pointed out, that the state sets these as minimum salaries. There's nothing to prevent the Metro Council from also accepting that the minimum salary will be that salary for a comparable position as set by the state.
Or even set them low.
Or even, oh gosh, did y'all hear that? Private said, or even set them lower. Metro government makes it possible. You can set it lower than what the state said. Oh my gosh.
My name's Lyle Reed. I live in the county. I would like to say, first of all, that I think that it's very important for this community that we have some form of consolidated government. You're given a blank piece of paper to write a government for this community. Not very many people ever have that opportunity to write on a blank sheet of paper. If you were given a blank sheet of paper and say to write a best form of government possible, the government that we presently have would be probably the last possible option. It is archaic, it is inefficient, and it would be in the best interest of this community for us to improve on it. I've heard the question asked several times, if it's so good, why doesn't more communities have it? Well, in one of my many careers, I had an interest, it was important to me. In fact, I got paid for finding out about that question. The real reason that the consolidated government has failed or has never been initiated is very simply, people in power don't want to give up the power. And that's what happens. People in power don't want to give up the power. I would like to, since I don't have long to talk, I would like to summarize why it's important that this community have consolidated government. Is when the president of the industry that locates in the mega site wants to talk to local government, there'll be one person to whom he can call and get an answer, and that person will be responsible to the people of this community for doing the right thing. I think it's efficient. I think there will be money saved. You can't point to it or figure it out. I look at this chart, and the chart looks good. There is one anomaly, and I think it is a serious flaw. The word politics has not been mentioned here tonight. County government, the federal government, the state government, all functions on politics. You've done a good job of checks and balances here, pretty much. The mayor does not preside over the county commission. That would have been a serious mistake to allow the mayor to preside over the county commission. You didn't do that, so I congratulate you. The sheriff should be the law enforcement officer of the community. That's a little bit of a deviation from this perfect top-down responsibility, but law enforcement is such an important factor, such an important thing, and people feel so strongly about who's going to enforce the law that, in my opinion, that is a serious flaw in the plan. Another flaw isn't obvious from this organizational chart, but it is the number of commissioners. That is important for at least two important reasons, and Dr. Granberry, you can hold up your chart just any time, and I may stop and I may not. I'm not sure. It is important, and 10 is too small. It's too small for two reasons. One is it's just generally people don't feel good with that few people. And another very important factor is that with so few, the minority has really no reasonable chance of exercising. There's some fancy words in the law that you don't want to hear, but where the group of people who make the decision is so small, the minority has very little opportunity of having a fair say. You say, well, there are three of them, they got three of this. It just doesn't work that way. And also in a group of 10, minority has less opportunity to have its say. If you have districts with only one representative, the odds are most of those are going to be white. If you have districts with two, the odds are there'll be a white and there will likely be a black. And that's just, you can say you don't agree with that, and that's fine. It's just a fact of life. So I'm not going to argue with the lawyers, and so I'm going to leave my other point aside. On the basis of what's on this chart, if you were to fix the sheriff, increase the number of commissioners so that there would be a greater pool of community represented there, I think it would have a good choice. I will mention the third thing. I'm bothered by the fact that you are abolishing constitutional offices, not because it isn't efficient. Your chart shows efficiency. The law, in my opinion, is not clear about the right to abolish constitutional offices. I don't really see any reason to. You could put every job that's under the finance under the county trustee's office, and you could do about the same thing with the others. And I think it would be more acceptable to the people and have a better chance of passing. So I'm right back where I started. I think it is terribly important to this community to adopt a consolidated government, and I think that making a few changes that would increase those chances would be a good thing.
Any response? Thank you. Thanks. Any response? Appreciate it. All right. 7:30.
Oh, Christie,
Yes,
I think maybe you, for the audience, reiterate the three.
I know it. I'm not saying we're leaving, don't worry.
The three concerns that Judge Reed had: sheriff and law enforcement, the number of commissioners, and the abolishment of the constitutional offices. And he made recommendations. I think we need to say to everybody, you can make recommendations to us relative to what you think should be in the charter. But now keep in mind, making a recommendation and our accepting the recommendation are two different things.
Yes, this is a draft, and that's why we are asking you for your comments. Now, Ms. Sweetlove's coming back to the microphone unless there's somebody who has not spoken who would like to speak. Because according to our procedures, everybody needs to have their first chance before we go around the second time. Hearing none, please come back.
I'm not going to come to the mic.
Okay.
I know I can project it. Got a couple of questions. I know you guys looked at some of the other metropolitan areas. I'm interested in what were your pros and cons. Second thing, this appears to be a strong mayor form of government. I want to know, does that office have performance criteria? Because one of the things I used to do is be a human resource officer. So I know if you don't have performance criteria, then you can't tell folks if they're doing wrong or not. I want to know, do you have that? Is that in the draft?
Others? Is that just those two things?
Just those two.
Okay. Friends? We talked to, oh, go ahead, I was going to say, we talked to those groups that have already consolidated. None of them have had the benefit of the recent change or our understanding of the recent ability. None of them were drawn without having the constitutional officers in them. So they were really not able to speak to that. They spoke to several things, and it appears that even now in Nashville, the charter allows for amendments so the council can make changes to this government with several fairly simple procedures. Nashville's in the process of doing that because some of the cities that opted out of metro government in the first place now are tired of paying for their fire and their police independently, so they would like to opt in. So that is happening in several places. The other two counties in Tennessee are, believe it or not, even smaller than we.
I know.
So it's pretty much they made a larger big city. They were similar in that they didn't have multiple cities in the county, so the decision was fairly simple. I think the third one did it mostly because the second one didn't seem like a good idea at the time. When we look at the studies, Mr. Barden, when we look at the studies, people almost always, when they're asked, vote yes, consolidated government would be better. And in a greater sense, they vote against them when they have the opportunity to vote, when the choice comes around. For some of the reasons perhaps that were mentioned, politics, power, change. And so from our perspective, no one has tried to write a government like this one. There's not been one attempt in the state And why should we do it if no one else is doing it? Perhaps we should do it so that we have the opportunity to do something that gets us attention for something good, rather than for a constantly dwindling population that has a lot of bad statistical things to go along with that conversation. So I think some of the commission members have seen this as an opportunity for Haywood County to do something progressive and that would stand out. I think if this were to pass here, that other counties in the state would quickly come along and want to do the same thing because of the efficiencies that it offers. Now that's pros and cons, not so much from others, some from just me. Performance criteria, you should probably speak about that, the mayor.
Repeat your question on the performance criteria. You talking about just for the mayor's position?
Yes. Yes.
You know, as far as criteria, the only criteria is that he be or she be 25 years of 25 years of age and live in the county. I mean, other than that, the people are going to set the performance criteria for the mayor.
State statute dictates on elected offices.
I know.
And so that's where we're kind of, I think Michael even looked into
But
it.
you not pass the state statute in other places, when you talk about removing constitutional officers, so I thought you came up with something. Because this is going to be a very strong mayor-dominated government. Therefore, you ought to have some checks and balances. I know you said they can be removed with 2/3 vote and for something and something, but 2/3 vote's hard to get.
Well, and that's vetoing ordinances and resolutions and other things, but you know, the problem I think that the commission runs into is if they start narrowing it down and putting these performance criteria on them in this charter where they're pretty much written in stone, you know, then you're excluding a larger and larger portion of the population from being able to run for this position. And that's where you have to let, in my opinion, the people decide at the ballot box. Am I missing your question? You're kind of grinning and shaking your head like I'm out in left field.
That's okay.
The performance criteria in the charter are for those appointed and hired positions. Only age and residency for the people who are elected, because I don't think we can put in an elected office a rule that you have to have a graduate degree.
Well, I really wasn't talking about education piece at all. That comes more when you talk about education. You know, you could say in Tennessee, we don't really say that. You know, we don't really say that you got to have a doctorate degree to be superintendent or director. We don't even say that in Tennessee. That wasn't really what I was looking for. I was looking for something else, and you told me it's not there.
Are you looking for in terms of some of the things that the mayor is expected to do? Is that right?
That's
what I think.
Are you talking about like his responsibility?
Yes. The 12, Mr. 12.
12 very specific.
Okay, well, if they're in the draft, she said.
Yes, they are. They're 12.
Look at Article 3.
Okay.
Article 3. Oh, hello, yes, I'm here.
Pam Russell, I live at 130 Brooks Drive in Brownsville. My brain is going in 15 different directions, so I don't know if I'm going to make any sense at all. But I was a county commissioner for 20 years, and during that time, I saw some of the frustrations that we've talked about tonight with different offices perhaps not being run as well as our county executive and the budget committee would have liked for that particular office to have been run. I see the form that y'all have come up with as being a tremendous help in that respect. And then to echo also the point of being able to remove someone who's not doing a good job, I think is also an essential, just a real plus for a government. Before the draft even became public and before the article in the State's Graphic, the scuttlebutt around all the little coffee klatches at Burger King and wherever everybody meets was that this was dead in the water. And I just I thought about Nancy Pelosi and how everybody has just loved her remark about, well, let's pass the Affordable Care Act and then we can read it. So I'm sort of feeling like people were against this before it ever came out on paper. And I would just like to urge everyone to get a copy of it, really read it, and make up your mind without just listening to what your neighbor has to say against it. I was a little involved in the very first effort that was made several years ago to draft something like this. And so I admit that I am pro this deal. And I have not read every word in it either, so I'm guilty of that. But I would like to hope that people will do that. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Our timeline is that we've got, 2 or 3 months maybe left if we push it to the limit. This is a draft. We can and probably will talk about some of this. May or may not anything change. But the way we're looking at it, when we take a final vote, I think we have, 80 to 100 days. So when it comes out, gets past the draft stage, then it's 80 to 120 days that it has to be voted on. So I don't know what the final word is on when we're going to try to have an election. But that's kind of going to dictate when it's finalized.
I'm Franklin Smith, and I live at 329 North Washington, Brownsville. On behalf of Mayor Mathern and myself, I want to thank the 15 members of this Charter Commission for the time and the commitment that you made to write this charter and for thinking outside the box. I came and thanked people for coming to the first meeting, and this is the second time I've been in the presence of this Charter Commission. I believe that you appoint good people to do the job that you ask them to do, and then you let them do that job. And I want to thank you for doing that job. It's not something that everybody is going to be, everybody will vote for, but as long as you 15 people think you have written something that makes for a better government for Brownsville, Stanton, and Haywood County, I applaud you for that, and I wish you the best. And this going on the ballot sometime in the spring of 2014. And as I told I take that back. I did come one time to speak about the mayor's office to the Charter Commission, and I told you at that time that I'm at the end of my career, and a lot of people associate charter government with my intent to be Metro Mayor. The transition period for this is 2018. I assure you, I won't be a candidate in 2018. Government, we need new blood in our government. We need a different way of thinking, and I've been told that several times. Our county is losing population. We're one of the few counties in the state of Tennessee that has been stagnant or seen population decline. I don't know that it's because of our form of government, but certainly Metro government would give us an opportunity to grow. We're not a county that's hidden like Lake County. You have to be going to Lake County to get to Lake County. 60,000 cars a day come through Haywood County. Whether they know they're here or not, they come through our county. We're between Jackson and Memphis. In my opinion, one of the most ideal locations, certainly in West Tennessee. And for whatever reason, we are losing population. If we don't reverse that trend, taxes will continue to go up to provide the services that it takes to run the three governments involved. So thank you for your commitment. Thank you for your time. I know you've heard what the people have said, and I know you'll consider it. And the charter that this community will vote on in the spring of 2014 will one that I think we can all be proud of, whether we all are for it or not. We can be proud of the job that you have done as Metro County Commissioners. Thank you very much.
Are there other? Yes, there are
Jones III. I live at 916 Lee Avenue. And I also want to thank you, Mayor Smith, for thanking this group. It was so easy and so hard, in one sense, to ask you to engage in this process. But I thank you, and I know, Mayor Smith, there was not a single person that either of us asked but what said, yes, we're going to take this on. So I will always be grateful for you doing that. I do think that there's one area that I've got to put in a plug for, and I don't know how much it's been discussed in the commission, but I certainly hope you take it back to your deliberations. Communities that fail to plan to fail. And I am concerned that the lack of a definitive function of government for planning for this community. I think that a lot of the job creation, a lot of the attraction that we have of businesses coming in, I think a lot of our future direction, our future leadership, I think a lot of our opportunities as a community, taking the opportunity of our access to the interstate, looking at who we are as a community and who we want to be in the future, has to have that critical component of planning and strategic initiatives. The Planning Commission is accounted for in the proposed Metro budget, listen to me, the proposed Metro charter, but the planning function is not. And I would request that you consider incorporating and adding to the base of the charter the requirement that planning be a part of our deliberations, or of the Metro Council's deliberations going forward. I have some other comments. I think it would probably be more, some of them are kind of pedantic in nature and just kind of, structural, but I think I would rather just simply address those in writing to you all, or maybe come to another meeting. But again, I can't thank you enough for what you have done, and it's been hard, I know. So thank you all, and good luck. We'll see you at the next couple of meetings, I guess. Thanks.
Mayor, before you sit down,
yes.
Can you expand on planning function so we all kind of know which?
Well, the planning function is different from the planning commission, because the planning commission basically deals with land use. I mean, and I'm generalizing here, but when you have a metro or a regional planning commission or a county planning commission, you're really looking at zoning, you're looking at land use, what's residential, what you do on commercial, what you do on industrial property, multifamily housing, all of those things. Planning as a process includes so much more than that, because it includes everything, not just your zoning and how you're going to use your land, excuse me, but it addresses things like your housing, your transportation, your historic, your urban design, how you want your neighborhoods, and again, I'm speaking from the perspective of the city of Brownsville, what you want those neighborhoods to look like, what kind of business, what kind of amenities, how you want to mix the uses of residential and commercial. So planning for the city of Brownsville is not just land use and how you zone. It is historic preservation. It is rebuilding our downtown district, our business district. It is economic development. It is housing and where people are going to be living in the city, which is what I'm addressing. So it's broader than just saying planning commission, you're charged with these specific duties. It is looking at all of them. Brownsville on the Move addresses 6 specific areas, hard to say, 6 specific areas for improvement in our community, and pulling in the boards, the commissions, the various volunteer, and they all are volunteer, but pulling in those various entities to say, this is what we want to do to make our community the best that it can be. I hope that answered. Huh? Good play for Brownsville. We want to be the most desirable city in West Tennessee. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
So anybody else? Just as a kind of a concluding comment, unless you've got more, we're staying, we're not leaving. If there are those of you who are shy and didn't want to stop talking from the microphone but would like to come and ask questions, we'd love for you to. So many of you came and have not spoken, and I'm not sure whether you've gotten what you needed as you're leaving, whether you've got enough information to start making some informative decisions about this. The charter is available. Kathy asked you, I think, If you wanted a copy emailed to you, perhaps you marked that on the sign-in sheet. We'll send that to you. There are a few copies in the room. Maybe you got hold of one. Understand that it's a draft. It's not perfect, and there are there's spelling mistakes and other things that we'll be catching as we move forward. But it is still alive and flexible. So we want to know what you have to say. And I'll tell you that when these 15 people came together, we didn't know each other. We didn't know our positions on anything. We didn't know whether we were for or against. And I'll just tell you back in whatever that was that you asked me to do this last time, Franklin? 93. Several people arrived in the room and said, I'm against, just as they arrived at the study commission. So by the time we concluded, everybody in that room voted for moving forward to a charter. And this group isn't exactly unanimous about anything, but we've listened respectfully to everybody's thinking. We've learned from each other, and all of us have learned what government has been here, what it is now, and we're all dreaming about what it could be. And our dream may not be the one you embrace, but it's one that we're beginning to think has some real merit for this small but pivotal and well-placed community right here lodged, as Franklin said, where it could capitalize on a streamlined form of efficient government. Understanding that, some of you mentioned this is a mayor dense. It's no more dense than a city government is anywhere else. The mayor is the same in every municipal government. It's no more dense than the President of the United States, who awesome power, but also lots of checks and balances. So the checks and balances are in there. But I really appreciate what you've said. The suggestions you've made from across the room will be ones we will really consider and listen to. We've all been making notes. You've been recorded. We've been videotaped. I'm so sorry, but that's the way it is. So any last, this is kind of a friendly group, so any last thoughts?
Would you announce when your next two votes?
Yes, Mr. Duckworth's job.
Our next scheduled public hearing will be January 9th at Mount Zion Baptist Church in Stanton. It will be at 6 o'clock. The address is 100 Lafayette Street and Highway 70. It's on the left side of the street going towards Memphis. That's at 6 o'clock, January 9th.
Oh, and the next one,
January 16th.
the next one is January the 16th at 6 o'clock here. And if you have other places that you would like us to come and speak, other groups that we could come and talk informationally to, or you see the need for another public hearing at another time, please let us know, because we care a lot about answering your questions and hearing from you what it is you think would make us have the most enviable and well-designed government in the state of Tennessee. So without any other comments, then we'll call it into this public hearing. Thank you very much.